Hi everyone and welcome to DR Boxing Weekly. I'm excited to announce that DR Boxing will be a regular feature weekly where myself and guests will review, preview and discuss all the relevant topics of discussion in the boxing world. Each week we'll have special guests on and we will talk about a whole range of things in boxing. I'm very much looking forward to it. But before we go any further, let me introduce my guest for this week's show. To my immediate left, Nick's in the house. What are you saying?
Looking fresh as always.
Come on, bro. You know me.
To my far left, Shane in the house.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
And to my right, James.
The AJ Sim. Thank you very much, mate.
I like
Can I say
that,
absolute
James,
honour to be
AKA
here for the inaugural episode. We've got so much to talk about, from juicy fights to juiced up fighters. There is so much to cover.
Do you want to switch
today.
chairs? He's nailed it, man. He's nailed it, man. Listen, there's lots of things to talk about, but I thought a perfect place would be, listen, we covered the fight last week. Massive fight, AJ versus Franklin. AJ's return to the ring after 8 months. He duly outpointed American Jermaine Franklin, who we know because he'd been in this country before. Fought Dillian White. Some people say that he beat Dillian. Some people say Dillian won a close fight. Others said it was a draw. So we know what Jermaine Franklin's about. Now, coming into this fight, I think it's fair to say that most people expected AJ to dominate, to win, get him out of there is what most people were saying. It didn't quite work out that way. I must admit, on the night, I was quite critical of AJ because I was one of those who thought he was going to get him out of there. But I must admit, I did go back home and watch the fight, me being the boxing nerd that I am, and opinions did somewhat change. But before I get into all that, let me start with Shane. What was your thoughts on the fight? You've had a week now to kind of think about it. Maybe you watched it again, I don't know. Or
So obviously we're always going to watch fights back. And I feel like on reflection, the opinions that I have still remain the same. I feel like when you go in there with the intentions, if the intentions were just rebuild, get some rounds under your belt, then it was a very good performance. But it was more than that. I did not see, everyone's talking about AJ's confidence, and I didn't see AJ, I don't think a performance like that is going to increase AJ's confidence going into bigger fights. And when you listen to the way that Eddie Hearn and his team want to move him, they want to throw him back into the deep end with Fury or Wilder, I'm hearing. So if that's the case, you want to see bigger improvements than what we saw. So I'm still very, very critical of his performance. I do like AJ though, but I'm still critical of his performance.
Nick, I know on the night you were pretty critical. You'd mentioned
mental weaknesses.
Yeah.
I heard that maybe a couple of times come out of your mouth.
100%.
You've had a week to digest it. Are you still of the same opinion, or?
Yeah, I've proved more right as the time's gone on. I think.
Wow.
I think the difficulty of AJ is that he's built himself up off the back of knockouts. He isn't good enough to knock people out at the elite level. I think that may be finished, but he also isn't good enough to outpoint people at the elite level. If he's going to go in against really slick boxers like the Usyks and Tyson Furies, I don't think he's slick enough and technical enough to outpoint them. So I think that he could be done. I've well documented on the mentality issues, but away from that, just on the technical boxing side, I think that he could be done at world level. He'll always be a big draw and a big name, a big social media following. What he's done so far is great. But I don't really know where he goes from here.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
If he had the right mentality,
Yes.
do you still stand by the statement that you just made? Because I actually
no. If he had if he fights that same fight against Tyson Fury or Usyk, I think he loses. Even if he goes down the pecking order and fights the exact same fight against a Dillian White or someone like that, I think it's a close competitive fight. So I think it's really, really difficult to see him being at.
Do you think he was hesitant?
Very hesitant. Yeah, 100%.
Do you think he's gun shy?
Yes, 100%. When the killer instinct isn't there, and the key thing is that he's not happy with himself. Shane touched on it as well. That didn't build his confidence, and he's. I think he could. We know when he struggles, he goes kind of more within to himself. He's not that character. He will struggle to just brush it off.
Do you think there's any mitigating circumstances? I mean, let's be honest. It was his first fight for 8 months, back-to-back losses. Coming into this fight with a new trainer, first training camp with the new trainer. Fighting against an opponent who, let's be honest, he's better than a lot of people giving him credit for. Mm-hmm. Are you willing to cut AJ any slack?
No. The reality of the situation is, okay, fine, I understand all of that stuff, but he's fought Klitschko. He's fought, there was a time where of the top 10 heavyweight ranked fighters, AJ had beat like 7 of them. So he's had these big nights. He should have enough within himself and within his own resume to give himself confidence. When he wakes up in the morning, he's still Anthony Joshua. Looking in the mirror should give him that confidence. And if he doesn't have that anymore, he can't get it from Derek James or any other trainer. He has to come from himself.
So from what I'm picking up from you, you think AJ's done at the top level?
At the top level, I think you can.
Right, okay, moving on to James, aka the AJ simp.
Well, look, yeah, I also watched the fight back, as an AJ simp would do. I don't know how much of it is confidence and how much of it is mental fatigue. When I hear him speaking even before the fight, now I go back and I look at things with hindsight, the way he's talking about the media, he just seems tired a bit with all the buzz. I feel like he's been the top name in British boxing for years now, and he's been carrying the sport, and he just seems a little bit to me done with all the fuss, all the attention. I mean, that's kind of why he went away with Derek James, and he kind of tried to simplify things. He kind of tried to go back to the AJ of old, and it's like he's trying to hark back to the youth, to the guy that was hungry, trying to get up and win everything. But once you've been there for so long, it's so hard to remotivate yourself
Facts.
to keep going. That's why it's so rare to see someone like Floyd Mayweather and what he did years on years. And I think maybe AJ, maybe he needs a little bit of a break out of the sport. I think maybe, maybe for a year. No, I know, but a bit longer, maybe a year or so just to recharge.
Or maybe he needs more time in the gym.
True,
I would say
I feel like he may even overtrain because he's a guy that seems to always be in the gym.
I feel like the biggest issue, and I actually agree with everything that you said. And
you agreed with everything he said as well.
No, but I didn't agree with everything you said. The reason why I actually agree with that is because I actually feel like his biggest problem is he's never actually had full control of his career. If you actually look at the fights that he's had, you can't imagine that he would have I don't think throughout his career he's been managed and the fights that he's had has been correct. I don't think he should have gone into the Usyk fight when he did. I don't think he should have taken Andy Ruiz at 3 weeks' notice. I don't think he should have been fighting Klitschko in his 19th fight, because once you get to that level...
So presumably you don't think you should have taken the fight against Charles Martin then?
No, the thing is, he could fight Charles Martin, but there was several learning fights that you have.
No, the reason why I say that is because once he fought Charles Martin and
he became world champion.
You become world champion.
You have to strike while the iron's hot, though.
However, you can say that, but then look at how he was moved to Klitschko. Dylan White, Charles Martin. I think he fought Dominic Brazil. I think he then fought. Carlos Takam, Klitschko. That isn't a steady progress all the way through.
Well, you know what? I don't want to chat too much retrospect because, that's going back. I'm talking about going forward. James, does AJ have a future at the top level? You've heard Nick is quite unequivocal. He doesn't think he does.
It's
on
tough.
the night, I know you were.
I wasn't that impressed, like I said, and especially watching back. I mean, when you're in the heat of the moment, things seem slightly more exciting than what they are. And I know we touched on him not really throwing any combinations, but the more I look back, the more simple it was. It was a very Klitschko performance. Like I said, there wasn't the combinations, which is his main name of the game for Anthony Joshua. That's how he gets people out of there. He doesn't have the Deontay Wilder power, but the way he connects his punches, almost like Daniel Dubois in a way, he's got a good repertoire of range and power, and he wasn't unleashing that. Now, like you say, the confidence, whatever it is, maybe he needs a big fight. Maybe he needs a Tyson Fury fight, someone that's a massive rival, someone that's going to spark him up for that. And I think his next fight will be Tyson Fury. The way you said that he was pushed and he maybe got the world title too soon, I'm not saying I think he beats Fury now. I'm not saying that Franklin fight is a great thing to push him onto Fury. Complete opposite. But you never know how long those fights are going to be there for.
So you think he should fight Fury then?
I think he should fight Fury. You don't know when you're going to get that opportunity.
Listen, I want anybody on the panel to bet me £10, 10 great British pounds, if you think that Anthony Joshua will ever hold a world title again.
I would be willing to bet that.
I think he's capable of.
Yeah,
let's
I'm happy to do that.
Right now.
I'm happy to do that.
I'll be willing to bet that.
Yeah.
And
Do you want to do one as well?
Yeah.
That's 30 quid. I think he retires before he touches a world title.
Mate, it's like you're playing a game of Monopoly. Hand out £10 to each
You may
friend.
well be right, but what I'm saying, and I think I speak for the other two on this particular aspect, is that styles make fights.
Yeah.
We all know what boxing's like. You know what I mean? Fighter A could lose to fighter B, and then fighter C comes in and beats fighter A. So As long as AJ is doing due diligence in the gym, he's working with his new trainer, he's preparing himself adequately, I think he does have a chance.
We'll see. We can
Depending
clip it.
on who the title holder
It'll
is
be
at
a
the
free
time.
Nando's for me.
Why I actually feel like he made a mistake is because if you look how he actually got the belt in the first place, it's very similar to what's going to happen.
Yeah.
If Usyk and Fury do fight, then those belts are going to get scattered because as soon as they become undisputed, he's going to relinquish them. He's got enough money to say, well, whoever's the number one contender will fight for the belt. That's very easy to happen. But I actually feel
Who has enough money to say that?
Eddie Hearn
Eddie
and
and
Matchroom.
Okay.
You know, they could, if let's say Filip Hrgović is number one for the IBF. If Filip Hrgović wins a version of a world title through being a mandatory, I can easily see them making that fight.
Yeah, for Daniel Dubois for WBA as well.
Or
But
whatever.
Yeah, so it'd be much easier. It would be much easier, but it's just how long will that take for that to happen? If that process takes 12 to 18 months, who does he fight in the meantime? And if he loses the fights in the meantime, he could be done.
That's why I think it's matchmaking.
I
That's why
agree
think the
with that.
matchmaking
Okay,
is so
I've got to
important.
stop you there because we're talking about world titles, even for AJ, that's very much in the future. We spoke last week about who his next opponent should be. I firmly believe that it will be Dillian White. I'm sticking with that. Who do you think his next opponent will be?
I think it will be Dillian White. Before James shouts at me, I don't think it should be Dillian White. I'm just saying I think
Who do you
it
think
will.
it should be?
I don't know. I don't know
if
if he
you was his
goes.
manager,
I
who would
don't
you
know
put
if he
him in?
goes further down the pecking order to get that confidence
Further
back.
down the pecking order.
I
than
don't-
Dillian,
if-
who you classed as a shot fighter.
You said he's a shot fighter. And
No,
I said he might be.
I did.
I think him versus Dillian could be a 50-50. Genuinely.
Do you?
If the best Dillian White turns up, I think Dillian is much more likely to dig deep and be a little bit more spiteful than AJ at this particular moment. I think it's 60-40. You know, I give it to AJ, but it's a close competitive fight. It's not a walkover.
Do you think
Would you want to see that fight next round?
I wouldn't mind it. I like him. I like Dillian. I want to see them.
Do you think he should have fought Dillian instead of Franklin?
No.
Why not?
I think he probably. Yeah, I don't think so. I think Dillian's bigger, stronger, more dangerous.
You don't think he had a better chance of knocking Dillian out, who's already hit
No.
the canvas multiple times?
Genuinely, no.
Shane,
Who-
if you were managing AJ or you were in his range trust, who would his next opponent be?
So what I think is going to be Dylan, because obviously all fingers point at Dylan. Eddie Hearn saying it, AJ, but I think who actually it should be is Dubois. Dubois holds a version of a world title, whilst it's just a regular WBA. I think he beats Dubois relatively comfortably. He's known to the public to a certain degree. The Frank Warren friction
Connection.
between Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, that will help sell the fight as well. And I think financially, there isn't and I want a fight that's going to actually build him and improve him. I actually think he can knock Dubois out. So I
must admit that is a good call. That is.
I agree, but that call, I agree with everything you just said, and that call is why I don't think he'll touch a world title again. Because if he does go and beat Dubois, and they could make that fight, I think then they know that if he gets a regular title, he'd have to walk into one of the other
So
champions
do you think he
where
could beat Dubois?
where he gets starched.
Do you
And
think
I
he
don't
could beat-
actually think
do
that
you
they
think
want
he
that.
could beat Dubois?
I think he's capable of beating Dubois.
Oh,
yes,
so
but-
then you
but I
he can become a world champion.
I mean, that's not a world
a regular WBA regular. Sure,
Frank
but that's
Warren
not-
wouldn't make that fight. If Frank Warren was to make a fight, he'd put Joe Joyce in there with him, who he thinks has a better chance of beating AJ. He would not put Daniel Dubois in there, especially when Daniel Dubois is on the verge of fighting Usyk.
I just think the point is that Matchroom know that they don't actually want to rush him back to a world title fight because they know
Do they
that-
though? Eddie Hearn says he wants the Fury fight. You never
Then-
know
then
when
Eddie's
Fury
cashing
might
in.
retire tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen. The money is there for the biggest fight in boxing history. You take it.
Before we move, obviously, onto other topics, I want to ask this question, though, because you brought up a good point. If Dubois fights Usyk and Usyk wins, Dubois doesn't hold the WBA regular anymore.
No.
That becomes vacant. We could see AJ fight for that vacant regular.
I'm talking
belt.
about proper world titles,
I
not
know,
regular
but the
titles.
reason
But
why
yeah,
I'm
but I
saying
know
is
what you mean.
Whoever is in line there,
Yeah.
that's who he might fight.
And if he wins that fight, he'll have to go on and fight Usyk again.
Well, to conclude
So-
matters on that, I think it's highly likely that we're going to see AJ against Dillian next, and I think it's the perfect match to be made. People will enjoy it. Personally, I think AJ will win quite comfortably, as he did the first time, although he did have to overcome a few rocky moments. But I do see him winning, and I think that's what will happen next. Okay, we're going to move on because we've got plenty to talk about. Last week, I think it was last week, Tuesday, the news broke. It was the biggest domestic story probably in sports. when we found out that Amir Khan, no less, had failed a post-fight drugs test for his fight against Kell Brook in February last year, when he was stopped in the 6th round, by the way. Amir Khan was found to have had ostarine in his system, which is a banned substance, which athletes use to enhance muscle growth. It's said to operate like an anabolic steroid, but without the side effects. I must admit, when I heard the news, I was surprised but not shocked. I mean, this is boxing. You do hear about stories about guys. I'm not saying I've heard stuff directly about Amir Khan, but you're always hearing stories about fighters, gyms, and all the rest of it. So it didn't shock me. I was disappointed. I wasn't shocked, but I was surprised. Let's start with James.
Well, I wasn't shocked to find out that he'd maybe been doing something. But when I found out what it was, a SARM, which is a selective androgen receptor modulator, that is when I was completely shocked. Because that doesn't make any sense for me for him to be blasting on SARMs this late in his career. SARMs, I know a lot of friends that have taken SARMs. Like you say, it's very big in the underground bodybuilding industry. It's what people take when they're kind of reluctant to go fully into steroids. It said it's meant to have less side effects, but actually I know a lot of people that have taken it and have had very severe side effects, acne, the lot. And it hasn't been very good for them. And it's kind of a gateway into testing whether you want to take steroids. Well, it didn't work out very well for him at all, which makes me wonder, why would he do it? Number one, because he has so much money around him. He has the best doctors, the best nutritionists. If he was going to cheat, they would put him on the real stuff. They would put him on the real deal. They wouldn't put him on SARMs. They wouldn't put him on a cycle of SARMs. And furthermore, it's the last fight of his career. Why would he be juicing? Well, most likely going to be the last fight of his career, the last big payday. Why would he suddenly go on SARMs on this last fight? And the question that a lot of people have been saying around him after being on SARMs, oh, well, it probably puts his whole career into disrepute. For me, no, because you wouldn't be on SARMs for that long. And if he was juicing on steroids, you wouldn't go from using anabolic steroids down to using SARMs. That, again, doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, hold your fire there. We'll go to Nick. Nick, when you heard the news, was you shocked, surprised?
I was a little bit shocked. I think I was shocked because we associate these things a lot, and wrongly, but with guys trying to bulk up and be stronger, and unless people are trying to cut and make weight. And similar to James, I'm not the biggest Amir Khan fan. But it didn't really make a huge amount of sense to me. If he needed steroids on anything, he needed it on his chin across his whole career, and obviously it didn't help.
Unfortunately, I don't know of a drug yet that you can take that will improve your chin.
Well, I mean, you said that maybe this sort of thing could help his punch resistance. You know, if he was a bigger, bulkier person, so it can have some sort of effect in terms of receiving punches. But Amir Khan's Kell Brook's one of my favorite boxers, so I don't know. I honestly don't know where I stand on this. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
One thing I got to ask you, and I'm going to come back to you in a minute. We now know that he failed the post-fight drugs test. Now, that fight was in February last year, and me, you, I'm sure you were, all of you guys were, the whole world, when they heard about it, was, why did it take so long for you?
That's what I was wondering. That's what I was wondering myself.
Totally ridiculous. I mean, Amir Khan, to be fair to him, he's admitted to having it in his system, although he says that he's not sure how it got in there.
Well, he was shaking hands with someone. He was walking into a bodybuilder gym. He saw a big guy, shook his hand. Next thing you know, there's bloody SARMs in his system.
That is palpably ridiculous.
But it is strange that it would be such more trace amounts. That typically would signify that he was coming off the end of the cycle.
I never really...
Listen,
I like where you're going down with that one.
Stop this.
Trace amounts. I don't like
it. It was a very tiny amount.
No. I've heard a lot of people talking about this trace amount stuff. Let me just make this very clear, okay? A lot of people who take performance-enhancing drugs get caught and then use it was trace amounts. You know why they do that? It's because they were cycling off and they got caught.
That's why I was
just saying. So miss me with that.
He's not going to be cycling off SARMs.
That's what I was just saying. If he was cycling off after the fight, then why would it not have been picked up before the fight?
Well, who knows? I mean,
I'm just saying. I'm just trying to make sense. If you're
cycling off, Nick, you're doing so thinking that it's been washed out of your system. Now, these days, the tests are such that people can still get caught. So when I hear people talking about, it was the equivalent to a grain of sand in a swimming pool. missed me with that. Let's go over to Shane.
I was literally going to say the same thing, especially when it comes to testing. I feel like a lot of people need to understand is the fact that it was post-fight. I am only going to expect it to be trace amounts because of the cycling off. What also people need to understand is rehydration. So the moment you try to make weight, you flush your body of as much things as you can. So anything that's in your system beforehand is not going to be the same amount that you had during camp. It's impossible. So when they find it after camp, I'm not surprised by that. But do I think Amir Khan consciously went out to cheat? The only reason why I don't think he consciously done that is because I don't think he wanted to win the fight. So to me, I don't understand. Let me tell you why. I don't understand why you would cheat if you don't want to win. When you looked at that performance, I did not look at a man who felt that they wanted to win.
Yeah, but does he even look like a juicy fighter?
So why didn't he go out after the first round then? He took a battering for 6 rounds in that fight.
Pride.
No, but you've just said he didn't want to win.
He didn't want to win, but he's not going to want to go out on a whimper.
Of course he wanted to win.
This
is Amir Khan. He's one of the cockiest fighters I've ever seen.
James, Shane, I think that's not one of your better contributions.
You think that he wanted to win watching that fight?
Of course he wanted to win.
When you say he didn't want to win, you don't mean he wanted to lose. You just mean he wasn't pushing himself to the limit, or you think he literally wanted to lose?
You know, genuinely, I feel like, when you look at the entire the train of events leading up to the fight, and you actually look at the fight itself, I saw a beaten fighter.
Oh, he was a beaten fighter, but he wanted to win.
I saw a fighter who acknowledged that he
doesn't
was
mean that he doesn't want to win,
myself and you have spoken many times since that fight. That was over a year ago.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest and say I've never heard you say this before.
I never thought he was going to win.
Are you saying this now that you know he's been caught?
No, because it wouldn't be in my benefit. It wouldn't be in my benefit to say that. I have no benefit.
No, but I've not heard you come with that before.
Because that fight, I don't even remember us having conversations about this fight. But the truth is, I've seen many fighters go into fight looking for a nice place in the canvas to fall on the floor.
No.
So you thought he didn't want to fight. He didn't want to win the fight. So he's like, forget this. I'm not going to juice up on anabolic steroids. I'm just going to take some Psalms. Help me out just so I can look like I'm in the fight.
That's why I feel like I don't think he consciously took it. I don't think he consciously took the only
thing, the argument of him cycling off and that coming out of his system. Now, the cycling off example for me is Conor Benn. The guy was on estrogen.
No. Let's keep it.
No. But I'm saying I'm just drawing a comparison.
If we introduce Conor Benn into this,
I'm not saying I'm not going to bring the whole thing. I'm just bringing a comparison because it wasn't just him. Chael Sonnen did the same thing, and Chael Sonnen said when he was cycling off, but it's an example. He used it as in they use estrogen to basically try and level out their testosterone levels. If you take Psalms, if you take steroids, it can shoot down your natural testosterone levels. So they try and level it out by using things like estrogen. They try and get their body to naturally produce more testosterone to make them look even.
So what you're saying
him just having some. No, my point is, if they've just found Psalms in his system, usually he would use something else if he was cycling off to try and disguise it. He's not an idiot. They have so many specialists around them that they're not just going to let him not take anything and they're just going to find Psalms floating around there.
Fair enough.
Listen, there's a thing that we need to talk about. It's called strict liability. Once that is in your system, you are pretty much guilty, regardless of how it got there.
And
because under the strict liability clause,
does he even look though? Like if you look at Conor Benn, he looks more juiced than a Capri Sun.
We're not going to do this.
If you look at him, he doesn't. Amir Khan doesn't look like a juicy fighter to me.
We're not. Strict liability is just that. If it's in your system, you are responsible.
Does it? All right. Well, with the strict liability, does this put his whole career into disrepute?
For me, it does. Absolutely, 100%. I've got to qualify that by saying that I'm 100% against cheats, people taking drugs in sports. I've long been, and Shane will attest to this, a big critic of people like Canelo.
Yeah.
I was one of those that went as far as to say I would never give him pound for pound
number one.
Well, because
he's a convicted drug student.
He's had some
Same goes for Tyson Fury. I think he's career.
But then what does this say about all the people that have beaten
anyone
Khan?
That gets caught,
No, but surely that puts a whole dark shadow on the entirety of boxing.
No.
What about the people that beat Amir Khan? If Amir Khan was cheating, and I'm saying as in it, on this case, if you're right that he was cheating for his entire career, the people that beat him...
No, I didn't say that.
No, but I'm
saying that once he's been caught, as far as I'm concerned...
Everything else can be questioned.
Everything is in question.
I know, but say if it was in question, what about the people that beat him? Does that not put a looming question over to whether they were cheating?
Listen. Let me. We're not going to dwell on.
I'm not saying everyone was, but
I'm not going to dwell on this.
I think there's a lot more people that are cheating than you think.
I'm not going to dwell on it, but it's necessary for me to point out. Amir Khan has been very critical of other boxers, including when he fought Lamont Peterson and he lost to him. He put it down to Lamont Peterson failing a drugs test in the lead up to that fight. Yeah. Amir Khan, and I sent you guys the interview in the lead up to this show. He was very critical of Conor Benn when he tested positive. I'm sorry, there's no excuses. Strict liability means you are responsible for what is in your system. Now, I've made my feelings very clear. Nick, do you think that Amir Khan's legacy is tainted over this?
It can't not be.
Can't not be, like what you did there.
I don't know. But it's it has to be, really. You have to question everything. I'm a big fan of Canelo for his style and the way that he fights. And, everyone says to me, his entire career is in question, especially being in so many fights that are very, very competitive. You just don't know. And, what you achieve in sport, you achieve. But I think that there are always going to be asterisks next to people's names, in boxing and in other sports as well. So I think there may well have to be an asterisk next to his name, unfortunately.
Yeah, no,
Shane?
I couldn't say it better. Yeah, definitely. For me, regardless if you're, we know how cynical and how critical boxing fans are. So no matter what, whether you consciously done it or not, it was in your system. And for the rest of your career and throughout your career, we're always going to say, well, was he on the juice?
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's fair, though.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, two of my favourite fighters have been caught. Shane Mosley, when he fought Oscar De La Hoya, I think it was the second time. Was it the first or second time? But he got enveloped in that whole scandal, that whole Balco. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Those of you out there, go and look up the Balco scandal. Shane Mosley, Evander Holyfield's
Evander Holyfield was the most clear. Did you see the guy's traps?
No, but I don't think he was ever been caught, though.
Because the testing wasn't as stringent back then.
But so therefore, you cannot actually label him a cheat.
I'm sorry, but look at the guy's traps. The guy's got more juice than a Capri Sun.
I don't want you to get sued, so we're going to stay.
Allegedly, he's got more juice than a Capri Sun.
What I'm saying is, if you have like Amir Khan, Conor Benn, Shane Mosley, Roy Jones, and the list goes on, if you've been caught,
you can even
as far
say
as I'm
Floyd.
concerned, your career's tainted.
You could even say Floyd.
No, but Shane, no, don't go there. He's not been caught.
No, I'm not saying you said a list of names, and I can put Floyd in.
No, but he's not been caught.
Neither has Evander Holyfield.
Yeah, so I'm not including him.
Yeah,
that's
but
why
come
I'm
on,
saying
you have to have the conversation.
You said, the reason why
what you're saying is different from what I'm saying.
I'm not accusing Floyd of that. I'm not saying that.
We need to be careful. Do not call somebody a drug addict.
Allegedly.
You have not heard me say that. You literally
but
just
you're
listed
putting them
out
in that conversation that I have.
Laurie's listing names of people that have been busted.
Names that have been caught.
Roy Jones Jr. and Evander Holyfield.
No.
I said Roy Jones Jr. and Shane Mosley.
Sorry.
James is the one saying Holyfield, and we're saying
Holyfield came up, and I said, if you're just looking at the eye test,
it's not an eye test.
No, but it's not an eye test.
But I'm sorry. You can tell.
We need to make it clear. I don't want to get sued.
I'm not saying he has.
You don't want to.
No, I'm not saying he has, obviously.
But if you've been caught, we can talk about it.
But I think there's a lot more people than you'd suspect. I think when there's that much money up for stake.
We agree.
In high-level sports, I think there's a lot of sports out there, not just boxing, but especially combat sports.
Everybody agrees with you.
Where there's
Everybody agrees, but the asterisk is only next to names of people
yeah,
who've
no,
been
of course,
caught.
of course.
And so
innocent until proven guilty.
So it should be. That's why we have testing.
I actually am happy. A lot of people were very critical because Conor Benn got tested positive now. Amir Khan. I'm actually happy because if we wasn't finding these people, then I'll be more worried. Like in a combat sport where people are taking drugs, if they're not being tested and found and reprimanded, then we got a bigger problem.
Yeah.
So I'm actually glad that people are actually getting found.
Okay, my man Nick said a very true thing. He said, "Let's move on from that." You've heard very passionate discussion there. We've all got our own thoughts and theories, but one thing we all do agree with is that we're all against drugs in sport, especially combat sports like boxing. So moving on. Big fight announcements. A lot of big fights coming up in the coming weeks. There's been a few announcements that have caught my attention. I'm going to mention them on the show. There's a big fight coming up next week. We will cover it in more depth next week. But Joe Joyce Zhang is a fight that appeals to me, actually. Very good fight. Again, we're going to talk about it in more depth next week. But very quickly, in a minute, Nick, you looking forward to that one?
Yep, I like Joe Joyce as a boxer, albeit he is limited as a personality. But yeah,
I know you've got this thing about boxers need to exhibit more personality.
It's not just that. I want boxers to make as much money as possible. And unfortunately, the social media stuff, there's other people we're going to talk about on the list that are big on social media, big characters and different things like that. That's part of it. That's what sells it. Do you know what I mean? And ultimately, if you can sell your fights with your character and with your talent and with your social media and all the rest of it.
The entertainment business,
it's an entertainment business. And hopefully we see a lot less of the dirty side, which is the drugs and all the rest of it. If people are going in there making good amounts of money, maybe that takes a little bit of pressure off having to, I don't know. But yeah, I think, are we doing predictions? Is that what you wanted? Or?
No. Well, you can throw in a little thing, but we're going to go in depth.
Yeah, I think it'll be competitive, and I want to see this type of matchmaking to push Joyce further, but I think he comes through that and wins.
James? Joyce versus Zhang.
Joyce, as a wise man once said, could put a glass eye to sleep. I mean, arguably in the ring as well as out the ring, he's not the most exciting of fighters.
I do like watching a juggernaut fight.
The thing, he's just an absolute tank. They call him the juggernaut for a reason. The guy eats punches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And against Zhang, who I believe got robbed in his last fight, I think he's going to have a lot to prove.
Hergovich.
Yeah, absolute disgraceful decision, personally.
Agreed.
And I think he's going to have a lot to prove in this. And again, he's a bit of a tank himself. But you saw at the end of the fight, he did start to get quite gassed. And I think against a guy like Joe Joyce, he will just pick him apart.
Shane?
Yeah, I think...
You like that fight?
It's a good fight. It's going to be entertaining while it lasts, but there's only one winner for that fight, though.
Which is...
There's no way Zhang lost that fight because we've seen it continuously. Zhang even had got rushed to the hospital in a fight because of his heart.
Was that against Jerry Forrest?
Yeah, against Jerry Forrest.
Got hospitalized after the fight.
He's always has gas tank problems. He's going up against probably one of the most high-energied heavyweights. There's no way he can win that fight. If it goes past 10 rounds, I will be
But Zhang does
surprised.
have a big right hand. And Joyce
has a very good chin. He's got a very good chin.
Onto punches.
But he's got a good chin.
But one day.
Yeah. How many shots can you take, to be fair?
Nah.
Until CTE comes and strikes.
One thing I would say, do you know what Joe Joyce and Zhilei Zhang both have in common?
A fight they both...
Well, would you care to enlighten me?
Do you know?
I don't know.
Both of them have been beaten by
Anthony Joshua.
I thought I was Brazilian. Yeah, both have been beaten by Anthony Joshua as amateurs.
Okay.
He beat Zhilei Zhang in the Olympics, Anthony Joshua. Joyce. He beat him when he won the gold medal, 2012.
Knocked Joyce out in the first round or second round or something like that.
I know he stopped Joe Joyce. I know Joe Joyce is saying that he'd fought a few hours before then, so he wasn't at his sharpest. But yeah, that is a fact. And Josh has wins over both Zhilei Zhang and Joe Joyce as amateurs, but as amateurs, not professionals. Right, okay then. I must say, I'm looking forward to that fight. I do agree with Shane. I think the gas tank will be the difference, but I do think that Zhang will make it interesting because he does have a hell of a right hand, as Filip Hergovich found out.
He is also aging, though. So
he is.
That's a big
I think
thing.
he's 39 years old now. But
He's
then
like
Joe
42,
Joyce is
isn't
about...
he? I thought
I
could swear Zhang's in his 40s. Maybe
I don't know, but I definitely
they're both
up in age.
Yeah, they're both up.
And I think they've both had some tough fights as well. Like when you think about some of Zhang's fights, especially recently, he's taken some damage.
39.
Okay. Right, okay, moving on then. Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia, April the 22nd in Las Vegas. Let's start with Shane.
Yeah, again. I mean, that's going to be one to watch. I'm going to be entertained by it, but there's levels in boxing, and we're going to see levels. Ryan Garcia is going to get absolutely sent to sleep against Tank. He's going to look good early. He's going to look very good early, but once Tank gets his range, it's over. It's over. Literally, Ryan Garcia is getting ironed out. I'm willing to bet anyone as well, by the way. Literally, I'm so
I'll make that bet now.
How much do you want to bet?
I'll bet another 10 quid.
I don't mind.
Have 20 quid going. I can't quite reach it. My arms, so I'm too short for that.
It's on camera.
It's on camera.
Right, okay. Don't want to preempt what you're saying, Nick.
Yeah, I think similar. Ryan Garcia is electric. He's very fast, very exciting. First of all, I want to give big credit to both of these guys for taking the fight. I know this should be standard, but we've seen a bunch of people at their weights, and we've wanted to see them mix it up for a long time, and they're the first two of the big marquee names that are going to mix it up. So credit to both of them. I think Ryan Garcia will be very, very good. I think Tank might get a bit of a shock of how quick Ryan Garcia is, but I think once Tank finds that range and starts letting those punches go and if he can start timing his counter punching, I think that Ryan Garcia could struggle. You know, he's a bit of a chinny fighter. I would go Tank Davis.
He's gonna get put into a meme. Trust me, he's gonna be mean.
He's already been memed a lot.
I think he's going to be an excited fighter, but yeah, if you're going to be getting dropped by some of the fighters,
Luke Campbell,
yeah, I think Tank Davis is a big problem.
James?
Well, I think I do want to second what you said. I think it's amazing we're actually getting this fight and we're not having another Floyd Mayweather-Pacquiao situation where you wait until both fighters are past it. To have both fighters in their prime like this actually fighting is what makes it such an incredible fight. And I think it's kind of, if I was to use an analogy of words, one man who says very few words, but everything he does say is with great meaning and purpose, i.e. Tank Davis. You know, when he hits you, he hits you. And one man in Ryan Garcia, who, like you said, is lightning quick, one of the fastest hand speeds combination punchers in the sport. How's it going to work in that fight? I do see, maybe there's a chance of him getting knocked out, especially Garcia. Sometimes he does lack, I want to say, discipline in keeping his hands up at times. He is hittable. He leaves his chin up at times. And if he is caught flush, he's done. But I don't know, man. It's such a hard one to call. And
well, you've called it. Bring that money.
Well,
in cash.
I want to put my. He put the bet on. I want to make it interesting, and I do really like Garcia as a personality, so I'm gonna back him in this fight.
Okay.
Shane only accepts cash by the
But
cash.
I will bet every time we have a show, I'm willing to make a bet, and I guarantee I'll win every week.
Well, you've made two bets now.
I guarantee I'll win every week.
William Mills to sponsor this, or maybe
Gamble responsibly, though.
Or maybe
Gamble
even
responsibly.
Ivan Toney if he's watching. But listen, I'm going to round this one. I must admit, I'm more leaning towards what these guys have said. I do like the fight, although I'm not sure that Ryan Garcia has done enough to earn such a big fight. Yeah, I mean, okay, take away the Luke Campbell win. He's not really.
No, but it's an
much.
entertainment business.
Yeah,
it's a massive
an entertainment
name.
business. So I hear that, but I do agree with Shane and my man Nick here. Tank, too skilled, man, too experienced, punches too hard, too seasoned. And we've seen Ryan Garcia. We know his shortcomings, chin up in the air. Sometimes he literally throws his punches and his eyes are half shut. I can't see him winning, but he does punch hard, and he does appear to be carrying a level of self-belief that I like into this fight. So who knows? But I've got to lean towards Tank. Okay, moving on. Canelo makes a return. Cinco de Mayo, May the 6th, in Mexico against our very own John Ryder, who is not only a British fighter, but he's also from Islington. He's an Arsenal fan, so we've got to shout him out for that.
So he's guaranteed to lose then.
This guy supports Leeds, for those of you that don't watch
Man
the
of
football
culture,
content.
a man
Let's
of
start
class.
with you on this one.
And one man of culture and class is Canelo Alvarez, and I only see this fight going one way, and that's Canelo, man. Canelo he's too good. I mean, like you said, there's questions.
He's also a drug street.
Yeah, there's questions about how many stakes he's had and his power, but the way he carries his knockout power through the rounds is like nothing I've ever seen before.
Do you think, though, that a lot of people are suggesting that Canelo might be on the slide? We know that, for example, he's has injuries to a leg. I'm being told he can no longer do road work for his fights. I'm also hearing an operation on his shoulder or something like that.
He said he had an injury going into the Bivol fight.
Yeah, so could it be that John Ryder could be catching Canelo at the right time?
I think people are reading too much into it, especially with the Bivol fight. I mean, you said that should diminish his whole pound-for-pound ranking because a guy dared to be great and go up again against his weight class, against a guy that physically outmatched him in every single department. But I still think Canelo is just a class above. And even on the slide a little bit, like Mayweather was on the slide in the later on in his career, he still had enough class to see out the show.
Okay, I think you made that pretty clear. Shane,
I think we've got 3 very easy fights to call. But in terms of the actual fight itself, I do think Canelo's on the slide, but I don't think he's against the right opponent to actually... I think it's going to be entertaining whilst it's on because John Ryder's always going to bring a fight. But just the skill levels, it's just too far apart. But I do think John Ryder's going to do a good showing of himself. I want to see Canelo win against better opposition, though. This is cherry pick.
It's not the first time in his career he's been accused of that. Nick?
Yeah, I think John Ryder deserves a huge amount of respect. I think he's been on the the wrong end of some very dodgy officiating in his.
Although I got you say
The
that,
Danny
like,
Jacobs fight.
when he fought Danny Jacobs, man, Danny Jacobs was robbed in that fight, bro.
Well, there you go. I mean, he's got favourable decisions, but he's been on the wrong end of some
And that was the
decisions
fight
as well.
he won in order to get the Canelo fight. So
Yeah, but I mean, we've seen Canelo fight Danny Jacobs as well, right? So
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if we want to see that again, but yeah, it's a difficult one. I think John Ryder deserves credit. I think he's a better fighter.
he
than
definitely
people.
deserves credit.
He's a better fighter than people give him credit
Yeah,
for.
definitely.
But I think Cinco de Mayo weekend, Canelo, Mexico. You see the fights in Mexico.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be. I mean,
It's a bit of a tall order.
That's going to just be a rave, isn't it? That's going to be a massive party. So
If it goes to the cards, John Ryder's lost even if he wins 12 rounds.
yeah, that's
So
a good point. Yeah, I don't know how John Ryder goes and gets a result. All he can do is go and make it messy and ugly and give the best possible account of himself, really. But I think Canelo, I still really, really like Canelo with everything that goes against him. I'm a big Canelo fan.
by kind of echoing a lot of those sentiments. I think credit to John Ryder for being in the position to get this fight. He's a good pro, good honest pro, good fighter, underestimated.
Good win against Zach
I
Parker
can remember
as well.
I was there when he fought Billy Joe Saunders, and he lost a close fight then. And that was many years ago. And now look at him now. Like Shane said, he had a very good win against Zach Parker. He then went on to beat Danny Jacobs. That was a lot more controversial, but he's there on merit, I would say, because Canelo's fought worse, let's be honest.
Oh, definitely.
But I can't see him beating Canelo. But we will preview in more depth in the coming weeks. Moving on very quickly, we spoke about Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. That fight's been made at 136 pounds. Now the 135-pound undisputed title is on the line. Devin Haney versus Vasily Lomachenko, May the 20th. Let's start with James.
Again, you're talking about another great fight between two great fighters. One of the greatest amateur fighters and professionals, if you're talking slick boxers, in Lomachenko to grace the sport, and Devin Haney, who is one of the most exciting prospects in the world right now. The way he absolutely dusted up Kambosos in both those fights, especially the second one, I mean, completely outclassed him for me. And I see this fight going a similar way. I think it's going to be an exciting matchup, but at this stage of their career, I see Devin Haney getting this one.
Got to be quick, Shane.
Yeah, Devin Haney, he's too big. It's too big. When he puts that jab on him, and every time Lomachenko tries to cross that line, he's just going to tie him up. He's really going to impose his size. When you see the difference between the two in the ring, you will know.
I think even Lomachenko has been mentioning the size a lot recently, which is kind of a bit strange. But anyway.
Yeah, Lomachenko is one of my favorite fighters as well, but he's drastically on the slide, and I think we saw that from the Kambosos fight. So, yeah, it's got to be Devin Haney, really.
For me as well, it's got to be Devin Haney. Younger, stronger, longer, taller, if not the prime, but he's approaching his prime.
Definitely.
Whereas Lomachenko, all-time great, probably the greatest amateur ever to do it.
Good
but,
learning fight for Devin as well, because he does make some mistakes. Yeah. Hopefully, he gets enough adversity.
But I would say this though, I don't expect it to be a cakewalk.
Yeah, exactly.
I do think Lomachenko is a great fighter,
especially in the middle rounds. Because I see Devin Haney sometimes takes his foot off the gas. You saw it in the Linares
it's a concentration issue.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, I think we all agree that will happen. Closer to home, Lawrence Okoli versus Chris Billam-Smith is announced May 27th in the Vitality Stadium.
What's up with you? Why are you shaking your head?
That is going to be one of the most ugliest fights I've ever
You know what? I'm tending to disagree, you know. I think Chris Billam-Smith is going to make him fight. I think that this will be a very entertaining fight.
Did you watch Billam-Smith versus Riakpo?
Yeah.
No, but
that was just messy. So I can't only imagine it's going to be worse.
Listen, normally I would agree with you both on that. However, I do think this particular night, I think Billam-Smith is going to come and he's going to make Lawrence fight. He's going to want that world title. It's in front of his own fans.
Is it
There's
fair?
going to be a lot of passion in the air, and I think it's going to be a half decent
Why
fight.
has he got the fight before Riakpo if Riakpo beat Billam-Smith?
I think it's just circumstances because they were trying to line up Chris Billam-Smith with another guy who had a version of the world title. They weren't able to get it across the line. Lawrence, to be fair, he stunk the joint out a few weeks ago. He needed a fight. So when the other guy fell out, they was able to make this fight.
Does the Shane McGuigan factor not play in effect for you?
Well.
You know, I mean, when I was listening to him speak recently, and he was talking about the mental fragility in Lawrence Okoli, and Okoli is under massive amounts of pressure. Sky Sports and Boxer have invested so much money into him. I think I'm correct in saying he's one of their only, if not their only, world champion that they
British-
have on
British
their
one, yeah.
books right now. I mean, you can't turn on YouTube. I'm trying to turn on YouTube to watch my boy Matisse freaking out about Graham Potter, and all I'm seeing is Lawrence Okoli documentaries everywhere. They've invested so much money into him. He's left Eddie Hearn, and now he's the big fish. And unfortunately, it seems, I wouldn't say he's gun shy, but mentally, again, he seems like maybe the pressure's getting to him a bit. He seems a bit reluctant to really
He's
gamble
rapping now,
on
isn't he?
things.
So he's spitting bars. So it's calm.
But I do.
I think it could be a better fight than people are
in
giving it
Bournemouth,
credit
though.
for.
Again,
Yeah.
big factor, hometown fighter,
Big fight.
for Bilham Smith.
Big
But
fight.
I see a Coley walking away with that one.
Yeah, I think Cody takes that.
Okay, we'll see.
Competitive, but
Personally, I think if he doesn't knock him out, you're probably going to come up short.
Who?
Lawrence. I could see Chris Billerson out hustling him.
Boy, I can see
So
this
he's got
fight
to take him out.
just hugging, holding, dancing.
I don't think it's going to be as bad as what you make out, but we'll see. On that same night, we got a rerun of Lara versus Wood, or Wood versus Lara. We saw what happened before. That's going to be a good fight to watch on the same night. Can't help thinking it's going to end the same way, but it's going to be a good fight nonetheless. And also that night, Michael Conlan, who's a former victim of Lee Wood, he's fighting for a version of the world title. He's up against Lopez from Mexico. That's another very difficult fight for him.
Yeah, again, I think Conlan's a good talent though. I think he's better than people give him credit for. He was doing well in the Wood fight. But
Good amateur.
yeah,
Very good amateur. Right, okay. It would be remiss of me to talk about fight announcements without mentioning Spence Crawford. Now, we're here. It's not been announced yet, but we're hearing very strong rumors that it's going to be announced for June the 17th in Las Vegas. Now, if that fight happens, that's a fight that everybody across the boxing world wants to see. I'm not going to say too much. I just hope it gets done.
yeah,
Agreed.
Ain't
It's
happening.
just got to
Ain't
happen. Man.
Ain't happening.
It's taken so
Happening.
long since like 2018, 2019. We've been waiting for this fight. If it doesn't happen, then it's just another crime of the sport of boxing.
Absolutely
The
agree.
peak interest may be just beyond peak
Yeah,
interest.
yeah, I
Do you know
do
what I mean?
agree
And
with
on
that
the
too,
slide, and if it doesn't happen now, I think people lose interest.
And this is what's happening in boxing. You've seen it with Usyk and
Fury.
Fury. You saw it before that.
I mean, if we don't get AJ Fury in our lifetimes, that's a
Wilder,
crime.
Should have
AJ,
been
the list
AJ Wilder
goes on.
before Fury even came back. Yeah, they
Yeah,
were the two
yeah.
big heavy punches.
Fact.
And this is the reason why a lot of people are getting turned off boxing, or a lot of people are gravitating towards UFC.
Too many
And
promoters,
MMA,
too many
yeah.
belts, too many.
But this has been
Problems.
boxing's problem for decades. I mean, boxing still stands the test of time, but it's been a problem for a very, very long time. So.
But hopefully that fight will get done. There's strong rumours that the announcement will be made over the weekend, or if not over the weekend, then the following week. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for that. Right, we're going to close the show very shortly, but I do want to just briefly mention there's a big fight this weekend. It may have gone under the radar for a lot of the casuals, but it's featuring one of my favourite fighters. He's back in the ring this weekend, Shakur Stevenson. I would say pound for pound at this current time, one of my favourite fighters, perhaps the most skilled fighter currently active. I know you could say Lomachenko, but Lomachenko, as we said,
You
is
mean
coming
like
to
that
the
weight
end of
class
his
or in
career.
general?
In general, I think he's up there.
Definitely up there.
He's definitely one of the most,
Definitely
and,
up
and as a young fighter as well, he's one of the fighters that definitely excites me. Shakur Stevenson, he's stepping up in weight, having been a 2-weight world champion. He's moving up to lightweight, and he's taking on a Japanese guy by the name of Yoshino. Now, they're squaring off this weekend. They're both unbeaten. Shakur Stevenson's had 19 fights, 19 wins, 9 by KO. Yoshino, by the other hand, he's a bit older. He's 31 to Shakur's 25. He's had 16 fights, 16 wins, 12 by KO. He's fought most of his fights in Japan, if not all, but there is one name on his record that you might have known about, Nakatani.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he stopped him in 6 rounds, so that's good
that's
form.
an impressive look. Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to this fight, man. It's Shakur's step up in weight. He's going after that lightweight title, currently held, of course, by Devin Haney. And I will definitely be watching this weekend. Nick, you got any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think, I was late on the Shakur Stevenson party. I'm not going to lie. I was such a big fan of Tank Davis, but I think he's probably got the best distribution of skill set across speed, power, footwork, all of that
Mentality.
kind of stuff. All the other guys have an overwhelming strength, and he doesn't have one overwhelming strength. He's just got a great spread of talent, which is how I describe him. So really, really excited to see him go after titles. And everyone says they want the big fights and they don't show it. He will go and make these fights happen. I have 100% faith of that.
Shane?
Yeah, Shakur's got the highest ceiling in the sport. there is no fighter with a higher ceiling than Shakur Stevenson. When you look at the fact that he's only 25 years old, he's already a 2-weight world champion, former unified champion at 130. He's got the highest ceiling. Look at the performance and how he just gradually improved. But the guy is insane. He's literally, there is no one in the sport that I would say who has a higher ceiling who can achieve more than Shakur Stevenson right now. I don't think there's anyone who I can say.
How do you follow that, James?
I mean, I don't know how to follow it. I don't know if I hype him that much to say he's that has the most potential in the sport, but definitely, like you said, the things he's doing at 25 years of age are incredible. He does have a very high ceiling, and I see him picking up the victory again.
Yeah, I would just add to that and say, listen, he's one of my favourite fighters to watch. And you know, it's funny because he's not the big puncher that people normally fall in love with, but the skill set is such, and the way he's got a certain pizzazz, certain aura of the way he goes about things, man, that just makes him very watchable. So make sure you watch Shakur Stevenson this weekend, man. He is taking on a decent opponent. I'm not saying that the opponent is the best in the world because I don't know too much about him, but I do know he's decent, and I do think it will be a good fight while it lasts. It could even go to distance, but hey. But listen, thank you very much, guys, for tuning in to DR Boxing today. I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed my guests. James,
thank you very much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Nick, as always, thank you very much, bro. And Shane.
Love, man.
And we'll be here next week. We'll be covering more boxing. Make sure you keep it locked and tuned to DR Sports Boxing. Like, share, subscribe. Keep it locked on DR Boxing. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We're out.